Okay, here we are in video 5, and I'm going to zoom back in here so you guys can kind of see what's going on. And if you're following along in your written instructions, we're over here and we're under reviewing the document. And reviewing the document has to do with spell check and grammar check and those type of things, reviewing the document. So we're going to start by going to the very top of the document, and the keyboard shortcut to move the insertion point to the very beginning is Control Home. And when you hit Control Home, your insertion point goes to the very top. And we're going to go ahead and check some of their spelling on this. So we're going to go to the Review tab to review or look over the document. Click on the Review tab. And then on the far left-hand side is the Spelling and Grammar button. Go ahead and click Spelling and Grammar. Then all of a sudden it pops up and it starts scanning the document for misspelled words or improper use of words. The first one it comes to is the word trekking, and it's suggesting us, giving us a suggestion of the spelling with 2 K's in it. So it's the proper spelling, so make sure that's selected and go ahead and hit change. And this should be pretty similar for you as in the older versions of Word. Then next comes up is the word for. It says this 7-day tour is ideal for those who are new to walking. Well, what they have spelled there is the number 4, and of course we want the other word, the other form of for, preposition, F-O-R. So make sure that's selected and choose change. And then it's come up here. Where's the next one? Right here under Mohegan Island. That's Mohegan is a proper name, so that could be spelled any way you want. So we're going to assume that's spelled correctly, so we can ignore that. Ignore once, and then it says it sees our title about Classic Walking Adventure, and Inc. ends. It's because INC, Inc. is a abbreviation. It ends in a paragraph, and it thinks it's a sentence. But we, being human beings, know that that's a title or a subtitle and not a sentence. So it's not a fragment. So we're going to ignore that. And then bada bing, bada boom, we're done. Everything else looks good. Although I will add this. You always want to go back and proofread your work again, because you are smarter than the computer. And you might have written something by accident that just doesn't flow right or doesn't sound right, even though the computer doesn't pick up on it. You are smarter than the computer. It's still your responsibility to go back and read it and proofread it for clarity and flow. But for now, we're going to assume everything else is fine for this particular project. Okay, I'm going to show you just a couple other odds and ends, little ways to review. One of them is the translation button. So scroll down in your document to the paragraph for the title, Culinary Walking Adventures. So again, down here where it says Culinary Walking Adventures, I'm going to zoom in again just a little bit here for you. And we want to find the word Tuscany. So in here, here's the word Tuscany. And let's read this sentence so we know kind of what we're changing. It says, we are pleased to announce plans to introduce culinary walking adventures in the summer of 2011. Our first culinary walking adventure will take us to the culinary region of Tuscany, where we will enjoy walks in the Italian countryside. Now, culinary, Tuscany is the name of a region. The word culinary is important here. And if you don't know what that word means, we can use kind of word to kind of get an idea of what that word means. It's an important word in our sentence, and we should understand what it means. So if you take your mouse and you right-click on the word culinary, and come down to synonyms, and a synonym is another, as you know from grade school, is another word or another meaning, another way to say the same word. We can see here, go ahead and do that. You say cooking or cookery. So culinary has something to do with cooking. So this walking adventure is going to take us to a region of Italy that really likes to cook, and the region is called Tuscany. And we're going to translate, I guess, the word Tuscany. If you have a word, the world is becoming smaller and smaller, and we'll be using words from other countries and other languages. So if you right-click on Tuscany, there's an option to translate. So go ahead and click on the Translate button here at the top, and we'll see what pops up is a new panel over here on the side. Move this out of the way. And we want to convert it from, and make sure it's selected, of course, from English to Italian, and then click the Translate button with a little arrow there. Click the little arrow. And what this message is that just popped up, it's telling you that your document is going to be sent over the internet to a Microsoft computer in order for it to be translated. So that's fine. This is nothing secret about our document. It's okay if it goes on the internet and goes to the Microsoft website. If you're not connected, you're doing this someplace else and you're not connected to the internet, obviously this would be a hard, or you couldn't do it because it does need that connection. And when it comes up, you can see that this whole document has been translated from English into Italian. Now, you would also obviously have to go back and proofread this in Italian to make sure the translation was proper. But it gives you an idea of, hey, when you have your own business, whether it's Italian or French or Spanish, you can take your document and convert it or translate it very quickly into another language. But we're not going to translate this into another language right now. So go ahead and close that. Come back to our document. And make sure the Tuscany word is selected again. And this time, with the word Tuscany selected, we're going to come up here, and what we just did there is we translated the whole document. This time we're going to come up here and translate just that one word. So come up here where it says Tuscany up here, and there's a green arrow up here. Select that, and it comes down here, and it translates from Tuscany to this Tosina, which means, I guess, feminine. And it wants us to replace Tuscany with this word, Tosina. And it should give us an easy way to do it, but it's not. So this is where we, as intelligent human beings, have to think on our own to be smarter than the computer we're dealing with and do what the instruction wants us to. So it wants us to replace Tuscany with this word, so I'm going to select Tuscany over here, select it, right-click and copy. I'm going to copy. Then I'm going to come over to our document, right-click, select Tuscany, right-click and paste, and replace that word. So now if you back up the video, if you missed that, and watch it again, but I just copied and pasted this to here and replaced it. Okay. Once you've done that, it wants us to add, to make that italics. So select the word, and I'm just going to use our little quick launch toolbar here to hit the I to make that italicize that. I'm going to take my space out here, and now we should be in good shape. So we've translated a word that the directions asked us to. You won't use translation very much, but this next thing, this command we're going to do next, you will use a lot, and that's the thesaurus. And the thesaurus is a kind of a dictionary that gives you different words that mean the same thing. For instance, in the next sentence, there is the word famous. And it says, you will experience the famous food of the region. You may or may not like the word famous. Or sometimes when we write, we're creatures of habit, and you find yourself using the exact same word over and over and over again. and you want to use a different word, but you don't know what another word to use. That's where the thesaurus comes in. So we're going to find another word for famous. So highlight that word. Then in the we can, I believe, right-click and choose synonyms. And here are synonyms for the word famous. Or, and this is what I want you to do, I want you to look at the synonyms. That's a quick way to do it. Or you can come up here to, under the Review tab, click thesaurus up here. And again, that changes the column of the panel on the right-hand side to give more options. And it says it wants us to choose legendary. So find over here legendary, or famous or legendary, and click insert. And now it says you will experience the legendary food of the region. So it might sound a little bit better, maybe not to you, but again, the point is, if you have a word that you're using a lot, or you don't like the particular word, select it, right-click, choose synonym, look for some options. If you don't like those options, come up to the thesaurus to find even more options. And that way you can build your vocabulary and you can build your writing style with, again, minimal effort. Okay, go ahead and play with that with a couple other words, and just pick any word, right-click, hit synonyms, and see some different options that you might have for these different words. Some of them, sometimes it might say no suggestion for one reason or another. Okay. Once you do that, make sure we save. Hit Control-S or hit the Save button. Let's save our changes so we don't lose anything. All right, we are almost finished with this document. I'm going to come over here and close this panel here. And now we are going to look at a couple things to do at the end of your assignment. Whenever you're done with your report or your document, a couple things you can do. Come up here to the Office button in the upper left-hand corner, that round circular button, and come down to where it says Prepare. And these are different options. I'm just going to kind of go over them real fast on what you can do with some of these. The first thing I want to point out here is the properties. If you click on properties, a little box pops up and it kind of tells you who the author is, who created this, the title of it, and some other basic information. Then if you click where it says Document Properties, go ahead and click there and choose Advanced Properties. And this is kind of interesting. Under the General tab, it tells you the type of file it is, when it was created, so you can see when I made this, and when it was last modified or changed. Also when the last time it was opened. You can come to Summary here, and you can see who created this. And sometimes this is a great way to see if, how shall we say, you've borrowed other people's documents, because this should have your name on it. Some other stats, how many pages and paragraphs and whatnot are in your document. So just some general information about your document. Kind of a pretty cool thing to kind of look back on. Under Attributes here, one of the options, I don't know if you can read it there. There, I just added the magnifying option so you can see it a little better. Under Attributes, it says Read Only. And we're going to talk about Read Only here in a minute. If a document is Read Only, that means you cannot make any changes to it. You can do a Save As and save it as a different file name. But if the document's Read Only, that means no one can make any changes. And that's good to have that option because you know you can't accidentally delete or change something. Okay? So those are the properties of the document. We'll go ahead and hit the X in the upper right-hand corner here to close out of that. Come back to our Office button, come back down to Prepare. And the next thing we want to talk about is this compatibility checker. Right now, we're using Office 2007. The latest version of Office is called Office 2010. And if you might have an older version, Office 2003, at home. So the question is, can what we do here can be opened up on an older version or even a newer version, and will it look the same? So what compatibility checker does, and you go ahead and run it, is it just says, hey, here are some things that you've done that may or may not work in older versions of Word. So again, you don't need to worry about it too much unless you've really done something fancy or something's not working properly. So if you do something here at school, you go home and you have an older version and something's not showing up, you might want to run compatibility checker to see and make sure what's changed and what won't work in the older version. Go ahead and say OK. Then we'll come back here to prepare. And digital signature is something that's coming down the road that you'll see more and more as more documents and everything goes online. It's just a way of saying, hey, this document belongs to me and doesn't belong to someone else. That's what the digital signature is all about. You won't use it too much for now. Restrict permission is basically you're going to add a password or prevent other people from accessing this file. And then down here, mark as final. Once you've gone through and you've proofread your document and it's exactly the way you want it, you don't want to make any other changes, that's when you want to mark it as final. And this is where you're going to make it a read-only file. And again, as I mentioned a minute ago, once it's a read-only file, you don't have the ability to change it again. You can or modify or try to delete something, you won't be able to do it. It's a read-only. You can use a save as command to create another file, change the file name, and you can make changes to that. But this one is saved for good. So go ahead and hit mark as final. And it says, hey, if you do this, it's going to be changed over to read-only. You're not going to be able to make any changes. Go ahead and say OK. Bada bing, bada boom. Again, it's telling you again, are you sure you want to do this? You're going to have to, save the document in a different way if you want to make any changes. So go ahead and say OK to that. And now we're set. And I'm thinking, if we look down here, look in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Of those different, we should have another icon. One of them now should say marked as final. So if we come and we try to highlight a word and we try to delete it, it won't let us. Highlight a word and try to delete. Notice to highlight a whole paragraph, try to hit delete or cut, and we can't do it. Okay. Before you print, though, you always want to take a look at what it looks like. So come down to the Office button. Come to the Office button, come down to Print, choose Print Preview. And when you choose Print Preview, you can kind of see if this document was printed out on a black and white printer, kind of what it would look like. Notice the background is gone. If you're printing out on a color printer and you wanted that colored background, you could choose that. But here in a black and white, you can kind of see what it looks like. And it looks like a fine, fine document. Now go ahead and hit Close Print Preview. And ask the teacher whether you should be printing this out now or if the teacher will be grading it off your screen. Ask them what is the preference, but make sure, again, everything is saved and you are good to go. And that concludes the end of this assignment, the Classic Walking Adventure.